Hello, and welcome to another episode of Final Gravity Podcast, a podcast about craft beer, life, friends, and existing on planet Earth. I am always here with these two fools. I'm Cousin T, one of your hosts.
What's up, Viking Peaches? How's it going?
Just like the regular social medias, I will no longer give my name. You just will have to figure out who the fuck I am, but I'm here as always.
And he's back this time.
He's here again.
We missed you. We missed you, CJ. Sorry. Oh, I just said your name.
Oh shit. Good to be back. Good
He's
to be
back. He's back,
Good
folks.
to
He's
be
back. After
Josh, I never want to go into battle with you as like a spy behind enemy lines.
Well,
No, CJ, it's okay. We'll just take this bunker tomorrow. It's not a
God
big deal.
damn it, we said we weren't using our names.
I'm just the guy who goes in first and tries to like ameliorate a deal so we don't have to kill each other.
So we don't have to do it.
Like, here, I've got bumper stickers. You want to enjoy every day sticker? Like, can we not fight?
Hey,
All
man,
just have fun?
friends?
You should just
dance
enjoy
in the
every
lift
day.
line?
You should just enjoy every day, guy. What's the matter with you?
Fuck off.
Anywho, getting on with this week's episode. So to recap, if anyone's listened to the last two, our first episode for this block, we had Marty, our buddy Marty, one of the brewers from the Sacred Water, come in and blind taste tests with CJ, which we fooled them on a few. They got a few. You have to go back and listen
The
to
only
the
ones
recap,
they got right were the two that they brewed.
which is a good thing. Which is a really good thing for
This is
them.
true.
I think you got those two, that's for sure.
Last
we
week,
both felt pretty relieved.
yeah, god damn it. For those that are listening, if you want to really watch some of the hilarity that you can't see in that episode by listening to it on Spotify, go check out the YouTube of that video. It definitely will make you laugh.
It was a good time.
And last week we had Fred on, or just a couple days ago we had Fred on. I mean, it'll be a week by the time this comes out, but whatever.
Well, it was last week that we recorded it too.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, he and you, I assume, were both bummed that you couldn't be here last week, CJ, but CJ had some things to attend to. So we'll have him back, though, and you guys can nerd out on the stuff. Yeah, I believe he's going to be sending us some of his collaborative Final Gravity Stout.
I am so excited to drink that beer.
Can't wait.
Oh my
I
God.
love drinking homebrew.
I
It's so much
messaged
fun.
him with our information, so I'm assuming look out for something soon, Josh. I have them being sent to me here, CJ. So when those come in, we'll get together for we'll be back in the same room together for that.
Dope.
Very cool. Very cool.
great-
Thank you, Fred.
Great conversation with Fred last week too. What a super down to earth, humble dude, and just tenacious to keep brewing, practically blind.
So much respect.
Yeah. But
And yeah, now we're back with just the three of us wrapping things up, and we kind of,
it's
we
just
covered.
us three. If you guys want to tune out now, there's no special guest this week. So if
Just
you want to
we.
go, now's the time.
Yeah, so that first episode of this block, we were kind of talking with two professional brewers and making them taste beers. And then number two, block Plato 2, we were talking with a, specifically home brewer who is really trying to take his home brewing to the next level, but still very much home brewing. And so today we're kind of going to touch on really the difference and like where that leap happens, right? Like, we have Cousin T, who is a home brewer who is very much dedicated and pushing towards being a professional brewer and making those leaps and bounds. We've got CJ, who was a home brewer for a long time, but now really just kind of lives in that professional world. And then you have me, who every once in a while like makes a batch of mead when he's drunk at night with his brothers and stuff. And where
So
that
we're going to talk
overlap
about bridging
happens.
the gap. We'll talk about bridging the gap. How does one successfully elevate themselves from a home brew or home fermentation project to a larger professional, not necessarily industrial, but commercial size system in beer, or any sort of fermented
Although,
beverage?
God, I mean, I wonder how you get from where CJ is to being like, the dude who brews fucking Bud Light. Like,
Yeah, dude, that's just
that's a whole nother leap right there. Shit.
Yeah, but that's not even like when you're doing that. That's just about like being able to to properly put together mass production.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like
That's more of a that's
at least I would think. CJ is what CJ and I do at home. It's all about the art and creativity and finding all these flavors. Bud Light's just fucking Bud Light. So
it's just
that
about
dude's
making
just
it
like,
consistent.
as
Like
long as the machines and timers and valves and everything, which I'm sure are all automated, are opening and running when they're supposed to be running, the machine runs itself with people in place, and
I'm
then
trying to
it's
think of the word for it. There was a major at OSU. It wasn't quite an engineering major, it was more of a business major, but it was about like the business of engineering and like managing production lines basically. And that's realistically you're more of a production line manager than you are a brewer at that point. No offense if the brewer for Bud Light's listening to us, but let's be honest, man, you're making the same beer millions of
Right.
times over.
Right. And
no
that's
disrespect, but that's kind of what you're doing.
yeah, and that
I mean, a
speaks
little bit of
loudly to
disrespect.
the big difference between what I think we modernly define as craft brewing and what some of us define as just brewing. Some people just think the idea of making beer is cool, and they'd be very happy with a job at Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, Constellation, any of those breweries. I think a lot of people that we'd be speaking to, they want the dream is to someday ferment their own liquid, right, and to make their own product, and that is a very um big crossover to make. And it's becoming tougher because so many people have already made it. Just like anything, we remember 10 to 15 years ago when farm to table cooking and food blew up, Thomas, and all of a sudden it's like you saw all these people like jumping into the restaurant game and making their place known. And back before anybody was doing it, you could almost jump in with little to no overall knowledge or skill, and you still had a pretty good chance of succeeding. The crossover now, and I speak from both personal experience and friendship experience, is it's very tough. I wouldn't lie to any one of our listeners or anyone who's finally tuning in and saying like, "Oh man, I'm excited about this crossover episode. How do I become a real brewer?" It's tough. It's very tough. And get out of there, my dog. Um,
Gus.
it
I guess.
it's one of those things where it's very hard sometimes for the people who are just discovering that you want to do it to make that change in their lifestyle, where they've always been accustomed to this job they've been doing for 10 or 12 years and they're the top dog at it, to then be like realize that, hey, it's probably a good chance that you're going to have to go into something and be the bottom of the rung again. I want to see as many craft breweries as make sense for us as a society. I think craft brewing is awesome. I love it. I love talking to home brewers, and I love seeing people want to jump into this industry. But I would not gift them what I was given 8 years ago when I first started thinking about it, which was just, oh yeah, like this could happen tomorrow. It doesn't. It doesn't. It takes either a serious financial investment or a serious time investment, or both, depending on
Yeah.
how far you want to go with it. You know, it's it requires time and capital, and it requires I think that COVID will show us, given the time that we live in, that there's people who jump into industries and expect the hype to carry them through,
It
and
might for a
that's not.
while.
It might for a while, but it doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't pay your bills on your stainless steel. Like
No.
craft brewing, just like restaurants, they went through a hype, as they should have. But a lot of people are jumping in the water that don't quite know or understand the difficulties that come with. I mean, you're not just talking about building a business that sustains for 1 year. You're talking about a business that might sustain for 20 years. That requires serious financial planning,
Yeah.
and serious
Yeah.
personal investment. Um,
And it's like, and
that
it's even hard just to get your foot in the door. Like, even if you don't want to open up your own brewery, it's kind of like that whole that IT department conundrum where it's like, you need to have 3 to 5 years experience to get into the department. But where do I get 3 to 5 years experience if I can't get a job?
Right.
You
Right.
know, so
The way I kind of view it is, I mean, similar to so many things in today's world, like, and I think especially in today's world and in the world of craft brewing, like there's a lot of there's a lot of hype that goes on around certain lifestyles, like the brewing and the beer world lifestyle, or for example, the van lifestyle, or being a professional skier, or all these different things where people see the people that they view as role models posting about these things on Instagram all day, every day, or they see a brewery posting about what their brewers are doing all day, and people are like, that's what I want to do. But a lot of people don't always take the time to recognize that, like, out of how many thousands of really, 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 really good skiers that are out there, how many of them actually make it to a level where they can do it as a profession or as a job? Out of how many thousands of really, really, really good home brewers, how many microbreweries are there that you can actually get that job at?
Right.
Versus how many of them are even hiring, right? Like,
Right.
yeah. So if you're not putting up the time and capital to make your own brewery, you really need to be investing your time into making yourself worthy of getting that canning line job at a brewery so you can build up from
washing
there. Right.
kegs, dude, and you're not going anywhere
Yeah.
near a canning line. That's like
Yeah. Right.
that's like retiree shit. Those are the guys that like have brewed beer for 15 years and they just want to make sure that their product going into the cans is the best that it can be, and they just stand there in QC all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like can go ahead.
You gotta humble yourself to get into this business. From any homebrewing standpoint, it doesn't. I can speak very frankly. I've read a lot of books. What they want to see first and
Like
foremost when you
10
go
or 12 or
when it comes to brewing, I'd say 12 to 15. Yeah, 12 to 15 books.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of books. I mean, that's more than I read through high school. I must have just spark notes that shit.
I don't know if I've read 15 books in my entire lifetime.
Your knowledge will impress people.
Wait, does the
but
TV guide count?
What really gives staying power is reliability. And I'm
Right.
speaking from having worked in canning breweries, having worked in production facilities where, my opinions on recipes, that's all I wanted to talk about, but that's not what they gave a shit about. They gave a shit about, did you show up and shell out? And that is really, it's not much different than any kind of major production facility anyone's worked in. If you worked in a restaurant, you understand you could be the most intuitive person around, but on a line, they don't give a shit about that. Can you get your steaks out medium rare every time, 500 times a night?
Yeah.
That's all that the business, like the simplicity of the business is can you get good quality liquid into a sterile vessel cleanly and appropriately and consciously? If you can do that, then you stand a chance at maybe talking to somebody about your ideas. But again, it's one of those things where, man, we've seen such a boom in it that I think a lot of homebrewers need to remember that American brewing has skewed so far away from traditional stuff that I think what a lot of people are looking for now is people who, for lack of a better phrase, appreciate the classics. That they want to see people that are intrigued by lagers or saisons or kveks or barrel aged beers. We've hit that point, right? We've hit that phrase we were using before, event horizon, with IPAs, where we're all just waiting on the next hop. Everybody's we know everybody's techniques now. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. It's now about who can make the cleanest and best one, and certainly there's still some there's some knowledge out there to find, but in the end of the day, if you're a home brewer looking to break in and you bring me your homebrewed IPA, that's not what's going to wow me. I mean, I say that with a knock on wood, but
I mean,
think
maybe they bring you the golden fucking grail of IPAs.
the fucking
right?
yeah. If I see the holy grail of IPAs from a home brewer, I will obviously come on this show and recant everything I've said.
Redacted.
Everything will be redacted. I will recuse myself from everything.
Well, I mean, and from my own experience, man, like I have been trying to get into somewhere around here, and even with like, I mean, I should probably start showing up with beer instead of just my resume. Um, but every place that I've walked into, and not that this is more of a knock on myself. It's like, oh, well, did you go to the college program? No, I've been learning and experimenting on gear at home by myself, teaching myself how to do it the right way, like the way they learned how to make beer thousands of years ago or
Just show them
whatever.
your tattoos, dude.
I was yeah. Well, that's like when I applied at the one place, they did the interview on a canning line while they were ripping out whatever they were pumping into those cans for the day because they were like behind on production. Um, and standing there talking and bullshitting over a while. You know, I've got my arms crossed and I keep moving my hands around. The one guy turns to me and goes, "Do you have beer tattooed on your knuckles?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Nice." It's like like he wasn't sure at first if that was like cool or not, but then he was just like, "All right, okay,
Like, I see you,
yeah."
bud.
But I mean, I always feel like I was not one step behind the college, but just because I don't have the piece of paper that says I took formal training on something, and this has been like the bane of my life, dude. Like just because I don't have that stupid piece of paper that says that I can sit through this, but
Well,
4 or
that's
5
kind of
years of fucking just experimenting and using different things that I can show you a fucking full Instagram page on, you know, just it's not good enough for some
well,
people.
that in and of itself is kind of insane to me because I remember when I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago, but probably not even that long ago, um, a fermentation college or like a fermentation section of the local community college opened in Bend. And I just thought that was insane that you could go to college for brewing beer. Like that just seemed like, oh, why the fuck would you ever go to
Right.
school for that when you could just like be at a brewery and learn and like get on a canning line and like, brew beer and learn how to brew beer, brewing beer at a professional place. And now, in a place as small as the Flathead Valley, that although it has a really decent beer scene for what it is out there, if you are comparing it to like somewhere like Portland or even Bend, like relatively small brewing program, even those brewers out there and like those breweries are like, well, did you go to the college for it?
Well, and then I'm sure there's kickbacks to the breweries that actually, take interns from the college. I mean, I could be wrong
Yeah,
about that too, but I'm sure that
might
there's
be.
some sort of like tax write-off for the business that says if we take interns from the college, their time spent here can be like written off or whatever I don't know how it all works, but
Well,
you know,
I won't and can't confirm that. I don't think that that's what happens, but I see the frustration there. It I think it first of all, shameless plug. I think it's amazing that a valley as small as we are in the Flathead Valley of Montana here, that we have one of the better brewing programs in the country right now,
Yeah,
available at a local at a community college.
I always love the
We
beers that
have
come out of that
we
place.
have one of the most incredible brewing programs. Joe and John are
they
some
do
of the
incredible
smartest
things.
people,
And I'm not
and
trying to
yeah,
knock
no,
on
no,
what
no,
they're doing.
totally, totally. And I just as soon as we said the college, I wanted to shamelessly plug them. If you're anywhere in Montana and you're thinking, man, brewing might be for me, you could do no wrong with FECC College of
Oh, they're
Brewing.
so cool. Yeah.
They're fucking incredible.
Well, now they
I
have a certificate program and their 2-year BA program.
Right, they have multiple programs enabling to get you through. That being said, I can fully agree with you, T, that when I started cooking, I didn't have a cooking degree. I didn't go to any culinary school. I started out in the dish pit, and then I started out in the salad station, and then I started on the fry line, and I worked my way up. And 8 years later, I was the guy telling people to start out in the dish pit or start out in the fry line. And brewing is no different. No matter where you're at in life, you have to realize that
Yeah,
breaking into
and
this
I'm not,
business is
and I'm certainly not expecting to walk into these breweries and like have them let me like run a fucking beer that they've never had on their system through
Well,
it before.
why?
because it's that there's a hierarchy, man. You know, I'm humble enough to understand that, like, when I do get into this, if I'm as dedicated to it as I think I am, that I got to start from the bottom and work my way up.
Everybody's got to pay the
Yep.
piper.
Fucking
To
amen to that.
anyone who is listening, who is thinking like, how do I break into this industry? Because this is what we're talking about. Get a job in this industry is the best advice I could give you.
Fucking get a haircut and get a
it's-
real job.
Yeah, it's what I had to do.
Go wash kegs.
I gave up a salaried position as a chef at the very same brewery that was my breakthrough, Culmination Brewing in Portland, Oregon, which I love to this day, and I love that I got the opportunity. And I finally said, hey, I'm done being a chef, and I want to wash kegs. And I didn't get to take my chef's salary over with me to wash kegs. I went back to being an hourly paid, 35 hours a week, living paycheck to paycheck. That was my transition. You know, did it eventually get me where I wanted to go? It's pretty fucking close, you know, and I'm very grateful for it. But was it a risk? Did I lose a lot to do it? 150%.
Yeah.
Anytime you're breaking into any industry, I think in this day and age, you have to remember that you're not the first person on the moon. You know, 100 people came before you. Josh, you're in a branding business. You think? I mean, I know you're not the first person to brand anything.
I've been trying. Let's be honest here. If you look at my history, even back in high school, right? I would find things I was interested in, like trying to make longboards and stuff. And then I would be like, well, fuck, maybe I can like make longboards for friends and sell them. And so then I started doing that for a little while. Or then I'd have friends bring their skis to school and I would take them home and wax them overnight and have my own little like mini waxing business going on. I have always been about like, how can I make money doing these things that I love? And I've tried dozens of different things, multiple different YouTube channels, blogs, photography, different variations of photography, different ways to try to sell that photography. And so, you know, I started really doing this shit when I was probably 14 or 15 years old, maybe even younger than that. And I just don't fucking realize it. But now at 26, I've finally started doing something that's actually like feels like it's progressing in a direction where I can make money. With Josh Reports, it's not even with Enjoy Every Day. I'm advertising it through this other thing that I'm doing. And it's like, I mean, that's, you know, at least 10 or 11 years of just every single opportunity I see. Every opportunity I see, okay, what can I do with that? Oh, that one's not working. Let me take what I learned and try something else.
Straight
okay,
grinding.
Cool. I started a clothing company, but I did it in a way where I could just kind of coast. Right. Oh, but here's a way I can advertise my brand and not just Enjoy Every Day, but the brand of Josh, right?
Like, right. Yeah. And imagine if tomorrow you said, hey, I'm going to try something 180 degrees different. Yes. Do you of course bring experience and knowledge from what you've already done? 150%.
Pretty much everything I do, I expect failure. Right. I just hope for success.
When you jump into the deep end of a pool you've never been in, that experience in swimming, it doesn't mean shit. You know, in the business world. I mean, like really to people who are looking at you, they're again, going back to what we're like, to anyone jumping into brewing, expect that you're going to be put through the ringer. Expect that you're going to wash a lot of kegs. Yep. You're going to package a lot of beer. I have packaged thousands of gallons of beer. Not my beer, somebody else's beer. You know,
I think that's an underestimate there, my friend.
I'm sure it is.
I think more like it's in the tens,
if not hundreds of thousands of beer. And it
especially
just,
at Culmination.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. And just those days where you come in and it's like, hey, we need 60 kegs IPA, and you're sitting there thinking like, we don't have 60 kegs IPA. And your head brewer is like, I know, but we got a 30-barrel tank, and that truck shows up in an hour, so let's get rocking. You know, I think a lot of people jumped into brewing and never had to experience that. Had to experience both the thrill and the frustration of being right back on a line in a very busy, very intense kitchen. We are not fucking around. This is what we need, and this is what we need right now, and you're going to get it any way possible by any means necessary.
That's a good way to look at
it. It is something that I guess, you know, don't jump into this industry and not think to yourself at some point in time, you're going to think about packaging. You're going to think about offsite sales. You're going to think about, how do I continue to make money with my beverage? And fuck, man, nobody sits down as a home brewer. I certainly know. I mean, T, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't sit down when I was homebrewing and think to myself, how do I make money off this? That never came into my mind. I never once thought like, okay, I just thought if I make good liquid, people will buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about how much money like I I was going or like fantasized about making. I mean, I put the numbers together to try and figure out how much it would cost to open my own place, on a smaller system.
Right.
But I
And
never once thought
yeah.
about like, oh, this is gonna make me a millionaire. If
Right.
no, it was
I
like,
mean,
and
it's there for
Josh can attest to this because I mean, I guess really both of you can, but Josh saw more of me brewing firsthand than you did, CJ, at home anyway.
Sure.
It was just like I never went after the gimmicks.
Yeah, no,
Like
it's always
I
been
brewed
kind
the
of a
things because
pursuit
it's
of
good to know how to
passion.
brew them.
Right.
It's
you still
pursuing
have to
passion over money. Like you do what you do what you love, and I mean you think about the money just to the sense of how can I sustain being able to continue to do this. It's not like that you're trying to do it to be the next fucking Deschutes. You're just trying to do it to sustain being Orion's belt, and
Sure.
whatever that
I
leads
want
to.
I want to do
Like,
it to so I can live comfortably, not paycheck to paycheck, and I want to make beer doing it. That's really
Right.
all I'm looking for.
And a lot of people jump into that and they, myself included, and they forget sometimes that, like Josh said, and like you said, T, it's not about the money, it's about the pursuit of passion. But guess what? Your landlord doesn't take for rent. They don't take passion.
They don't take passion.
That's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. I think anyone who's ever talked to me on a personal
that's
level
why I
knows.
live at my parents' house.
Yeah, I'm not a
Fuck you.
capitalist by any means. But man, the beer game is it's a game just like the food game was a game where we, from a professional brewer standpoint, do I make sacrifices to make sure that I can still make the beers I want to make? You bet your ass I do. I absolutely make some beers that they're not bad, but they're the ones that are they're the ones that grease the wheels so I can keep
the lights on at night.
They keep the lights on at night.
10 Barrel has to make Apocalypse because that's like their IPA. But then in making that, that's what pays for them being able to experiment.
Which, side note on this topic, and maybe I know we've hit it before on other episodes randomly, but since we're talking about brewing and crossover, if you think you're going to get by in today's market without an IPA, do not open a brewery.
Yeah, you're sadly mistaken.
Do not open a brewery. It has been the top selling beer, I want to say, for 15 years plus now in America.
Wayfinder, a Lager Hells style specific brewery, has an IPA.
That was my specific. I was actually about to Google. I was like, they have to have one.
And
right?
and they've done collaborations with
they have a couple, yeah.
Oh, what's that?
They've done a Modern Times collaboration. I know they've done a Culmination collaboration.
I think they did a Great Notion one too.
Great Notion, yeah.
What about what's that? The CJ, one of the last episodes and things that we ever did while I was still in Montana. You brought that the collab between Culmination and
Ale Apothecary.
Ale Apothecary. Do they have it? I don't think they've ever made an IPA. But that's a very different brewing style. It's much more of a wine.
I don't want to speak to if they've never. I think you're right on that. I really think you're right, but I don't have their catalog in front of me, and it's been a while since.
Well, and their catalog is such a random thing. Like I went into their barrel house one time before I moved to Montana, and they brew beer in a very different style in that they brew these batches of beer, and even a batch of the same name beer 1 year apart is going to be so different because of the open brewing process that they use and everything, and the way they age it and everything. So all their beers are always going to be different. And they had, barrels, and, they would just randomly pick, Simpsons characters' names for these 5 batches and name that. And so they're all different. They're always making like these small batch beers, and it's much more like a wine drinking experience. But I don't think they have a consistent IPA at the very least, and I don't know if I've ever heard of an IPA from them
They
in general.
I don't think they do, and they're one of those people that does slip through the cracks. And I'm unfortunately, due to my short-term memory lapse, spacing that man's name right now. But I have worked directly with him. We
Yep.
actually did put fresh elderflower into a sour beer that we were both working on at Culmination, and Paul Arney. Paul Arney is the head brewer, and there, and he is.
If you say his name fast enough,
he's
it sounds like a town in Ireland.
Paul Arney.
Polarny?
He's a magnificent brewer. He's an amazing person. A few months ago, there was an article that about him, or he even talked about, man, during these new times, how interesting it is to be that brewery, like you said, Josh, that really took a stand on, we're going to brew traditional styles. We're going to brew
wild ales is what they
wild
call
ales.
their
We're going to
stuff,
filter
yeah.
our beers through fresh juniper branches. It's all going to be open fermentation. It's going to be this. And to be clear, they make incredible ales. They make
Amazing
incredible
beer.
beers. But no, I don't think to this day they've ever forayed into the Western brewing perspective.
But
they also
don't have a whole brew pub. They don't have
right.
all the,
and it's
a
few
very
and far
kind of select
between.
thing.
It's few and far between the people that get away with doing that. I mean, Paul is at the end of the day, he's a scientist and he's a mathematical genius. He knows what he's doing. I would put 10 of the other best brewers in this country up against him and say, do the same thing. Don't make an IPA, just filter your beer through fresh juniper branches. And it wouldn't work, you know?
No.
I mean, the other prime example is Mike Wright from what used to be the Commons Brewery in Portland, Oregon, which was a very lauded and well-respected brewery. And Mike Wright's whole idea was, I don't want to do IPAs. I want to do traditional German lagers, and I want to do Franco-Belgian saisons. And holy shit, did he crush that category?
Yeah.
But 3 years after winning Best Beer in Portland, he didn't have a brewery anymore. And the biggest thing was I couldn't pay the rent because I wasn't selling enough beer. Why weren't you selling enough beer?
Didn't have
IPA.
You weren't popping out IPA, dude.
Well, and there's something to be said about something like Ale Apothecary. You know, a town like Bend, where we have this huge beer culture and there's so many breweries, but so many people coming here just to drink. Like, you can find your niche and you can find those people in a place like this that will buy your beer and support you.
But
it'd
it
be a
may
lot
not
harder.
be
Like,
enough to keep the lights on.
you know, Ale Apothecary
Right.
could not exist in Montana, probably, right? Like,
No,
I just don't think it would work out
not
there.
at all.
Like,
It would never. No,
Well,
at least not
it's
right
the
now.
same thing. Like if you took like a Trappist monastery and put it here somewhere, probably wouldn't last that long.
No.
Orval's not going to survive in Montana in the modern day drinking world.
No.
You know?
Well, and even Ale Apothecary, I don't think would work in Portland because suddenly, I mean, Bend is like, it's for something like that, because you can't be too big, because otherwise then you're never going to get heard of either. Because if your friend's not coming up to you like, I had the best IPA in the world from this new spot down the street, you're not going to hear about it in Portland. Whereas in Bend, it's small enough that you're still going to get that word of mouth. Like, dude, I had this amazing wild beer from this really cool place that's super unique, but it's big enough to support it. Portland's too big. Montana's too, like,
even Cascade Brewing, who is famously for their sour beers and their sour barrel program and all this stuff. I'm sure there's an IPA or two on tap that they have to sell.
Guarantee it. There is. Yeah.
You know, I guarantee it. But even for something that's like completely not even the ballpark of IPAs, you know what I mean?
Novelty is not sustainability, and that's the best lesson that we can pass on to anybody, is that you for every crazy fun thing you think you want to do in your bag of tricks, make sure you've got I'm going to appeal to the nerds in this category, make sure you've got a sword and a bow and arrow that can still do some DPS. You know what I'm saying? Like, make sure that you're coming to the fight with everything that you need and not just your bag of tricks, you know? Because that doesn't sustain for 99.9% of us. I think that where we've gotten, and I wanted to bring this up, I know that's not a word, where we are, and I wanted to bring this up earlier, is that there's really two direct pathways into crossing over into professional brewing. One, you fucking grind. You go out and you get a job, you hump it, and you ask people a lot of questions, you let your interests be known, and slowly but surely you get an opportunity. And don't don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Fucking be ready for that opportunity and take it. But there's a second option. Maybe you've got $100K in the bank account and you're ready tomorrow to start a small business. If that is your option, and owning a small brewery is what you want to do, there are ways to do it. And what I would tell you is be smart, be economical. Did I say that right? Economical. Thank you. And your face caught me right there. Was that wasn't right, but like, there, you can go out and get a brewery consultant. They're going to tell you all these things you need.
You don't
Remember
need
that,
new stainless.
Yeah, we've been making beer in oak vats for 1,000 years plus, and it's been fine beer. In
There's
fact,
an article
Arnie
that we all
proves
just
that it's
read
great beer.
a couple weeks ago about the fucking the brewery in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5,000 years old, and I'm pretty sure it's all made out of clay pots.
Yep.
There's a lot of ways to get the job done. And what you want to focus on when you're crossing over, and anyone who looks at my bank account will know I'm not the best person to give advice on finances, but maybe I've got a good perspective because I've made a lot of poor decisions. Is you don't need everything they're going to try and sell you. You need a couple vessels that hold heat and can boil something, and you need hoses to transfer over to some tanks that can hold pressure. That's really all you need to make beer. Now, granted, bells and whistles are great. Bells and whistles are awesome. I think that my brewery, Backslope, or the brewery that I work for, I should say, Backslope, spent about $3,000 on bells and whistles as soon as I got there, just because I was like, hey, we don't have this, we should have this. But at the end of the day, were they making beer before I got there? Yes, they were. Were they making acceptable beer before I got there? Yes, they were. You have to start, if you want to cross over and you're in that small business category, prioritize your needs, man, because Jesus, $20,000 of stainless steel turns into $150,000 of stainless steel pretty fucking quick. Used equipment, oak vessels, they've been used to make beer for 1,500 years. It's not, if not longer. It's pretty easy. I mean, stainless it wasn't pre-industrial, but point being, we've been making beer for 5,000 years, as Thomas just illustrated from that article. The Sumerians and Egyptians were making beer before we were making bread. Crossing over into the professional beer spectrum, that is a whole new ballpark. Go ahead, Josh.
Just spend a second looking through things. We actually managed to name 2 breweries tonight that don't have IPAs, or at least consistently. Cascade Brewing. I just went through their entire beer selection online right now.
IPA?
I don't know if they've never made an IPA or if they just don't have any right now.
Current
the closest
tap
I could find, they do have a hazy pale ale in cans.
Okay.
But it's not an IPA. And that's true. Everything else was variations of gosés, sours, wheat ales. They did have a couple imperial reds, but I didn't see a single IPA on their current beer list.
And what's is Goza? Goes? How do you say that?
I've always heard it as, I believe the proper pronunciation is Gosa. That's what I'm aware of from a German.
It goes as a gosé, but sometimes it goes a little bit far.
Walked right into that one.
I am of the firm belief now that it is Gosa. That is what
I believe that is correct.
Pronunciation to be.
But if you want to sound bougie and fancy, you say gosé because Americans don't know shit.
Well, because it rhymes with rosé and people just don't fucking.
I'll have a gosé because it sounds French.
Yeah.
Because it's not even close.
From Leipzig, Germany, and Goslar, Germany, in case anybody was wondering out there.
If it's from Goslar, Germany, it might be Gauze, honestly.
I always used to pronounce it as just Gauze or Gauze. But every time I've looked it up, the way they highlight the vowels,
the umlaut and
I believe it's supposed to be Gosa. Again, okay. I like you, Josh. Because it's from Goslin, traditionally, I would always pronounce it as a gos. But I believe that is supposed to be at the end of it. So
gotcha.
that's my most recent reading of it. I think Gosa or Gosa is what it's supposed to be.
It's like when people ask me about, they're like, what's a Kolsch? I was like, it's from Cologne, Germany. They're like, what? I'm like, here's an article.
Yep.
Well, because it's kind of the same thing because Cologne is it's spelled exactly how it sounds, Cologene or whatever it is, but Kolsch is
Correct.
with a K with an umlaut over the O.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. None of us speak proper German, so.
And again, if you're looking to cross over to professional brewing, and what we're talking about right now is blowing your mind, read a lot more books. Read
at least like 2
books.
to 3 more.
At least 2.
or listen to more of this podcast, or listen to other podcasts, or I think, with the boom of anything, you see a lot of people jump into the business who really, truly, with respect, don't know what they're doing. And I'm not going to name breweries because that would be completely unprofessional. But
we're not going to do that.
Don't jump. Don't
there's
jump
that
into this
one
business.
place though that did that one beer. A couple years
you're
back.
You're not gonna go me into this.
No, they did. They did that one beer, that one place. It's from that one state.
Backslope Brewing, Montana.
That one state,
He
it
just
has
threw
that
himself
one
under the
brewer.
bus.
It had that name for it. Yeah, that place.
Sacred Waters, Marty.
No disrespect. We're kidding. I swear to God, please don't pull our funding.
Yeah, we really appreciate that $1,000 you sent to me and Josh a month. It's great. It's fucking awesome, dude.
I'm really getting sick and tired of you guys getting paid.
It's funding my ski habits quite nicely.
I bet.
Yeah, Josh hasn't actually gotten like Solomon sponsors. He's just buying me stuff with all of the podcast money.
We saw a lot of people over the last 3 or 4 years jump into this business with this one hype idea of making, I'll go back to a reference I made before, but making like a Skittles IPA or making a fucking Nutter Butter Stout. And again, I think that you should take inspiration from anywhere. But if you're going to try and jump in this business and you have not done the back research on really, truly what has staying, like, here's the thing. IPA isn't going anywhere. Honestly, truly, a good Pilsner, it's not going anywhere. So no matter what cool idea you think you have or whatever hype branding you think you have, make sure you're coming into this market with the basic skills. And T, I know that you and I have talked about this, and that's why I was very stoked that you started jumping into lagering, because when you jump into this world, people are going to want to know what you can do. And just saying, hey, I threw a bunch of marshmallows in my beer does not set you apart from anybody anymore.
There have definitely been a couple of conversations that I've had at breweries with owners or staff or brewers themselves, whatever. And they're like, "Oh yeah, what was the last beer you made at home?" I was like, "Well, I made an amber lager and a Kolsch." They're like, "You did what?"
Right.
And not because they don't know what it is, but because no one ever expects those two answers to come out of someone's mouth.
Even coming from a home brewer who tried a lot of things, and I still love trying things, like, it's more inspiring to me to see people who are like, no, I've really perfected the craft of this particular style of beer. And a lot of times I'm left in the dust when I talk to other brewers who, like, I'm not a lager brewer by trade. I'm an ale brewer, so anytime I talk to a lager brewer, man, it's some mind-blowing shit. Anytime I talk to I'm also a barrel aged and a wild brewer by trade, and anytime I still talk to other wild brewers, I'm left in the dust sometimes about, like, there's so much information and learning out there, and I think that people jump into this industry thinking, if I can do this one thing, I can do it all. It's not true.
That's far from the truth.
I don't want to discourage anybody from chasing their dreams. But,
I feel like it works one way, not necessarily the other. Like, you can't just make IPAs and expect to be able to make anything. But if you can make a really good, clean lager or Pilsner, like, making an IPA should be pretty easy.
Well,
it should be. You're right.
I think part of it boils down to, you need to have an IPA on tap. Doesn't need to be the best IPA, right?
Just gotta have a hoppy beer.
If you have that thing, like, Wayfinder Brewing, if you are damn fucking good at lagers and you make the best fucking lagers in the game,
Kevin
Davies. I hope you're listening, Kevin.
Yeah.
If you're listening, by the way, that IPA you made years ago with Sriracha Ace was dope.
I tried to apply to be one of your brewers. I'm not mad that you didn't call me.
But for example, even a brewery like Wayfinder, I've never had their IPA because obviously when I went to Wayfinder, I was like, give me those lagers because I
Give me that
want to
Hellas,
taste what you're
baby.
good
Give me
at.
that Hellas.
Hellas is incredible.
But maybe they make like a kind of mediocre IPA as long as they have the IPA on tap. So, you know, that one fucking hipster dude in Portland who's with the whole group.
What do you
and
mean
he's
that
not
one?
going to go somewhere if they don't have an
Right.
IPA.
You mean that one
Fuck it, they
pack
have
of
an IPA.
15?
I'm going to drink it and everyone else can have their fancy lagers, right? Like you have to have the IPA and you have to do it like mediocre, but you can really perfect that other really cool thing that you got into the game for. You have to make sure you can do everything
Right.
mediocre before you can really do that one thing amazingly.
Since we brought up his name and Peaches, I know this is not Josh what you meant to say, but there is nothing, in my opinion, that Kevin Davies makes that's mediocre. And I know that's not what you meant to say. I know that.
It's
but
the only brewery off the top of my head I could think of that's like a lager specific brewery. But
Lager
if
centric.
you are anywhere near Portland and you are craving a traditional German lager, Wayfinder Brewing is that they actually don't pay us yet. But when they do, Josh and I will be really appreciative of that.
100%.
They are fucking great. And all three of us have been to that brewery at different times, but you guys got to go together, which when you guys came back from your Portland trip, I was thrilled about, because had I put
so
5 of the top breweries to see on, I think I gave you guys a list, and I think that was on there.
We made it to a
you
few.
gave us a list, and then we forgot the list, and then we
but I think that was like the only one on the list you guys
list.
actually hit.
That one in
Or
Culmination.
That in Culmination, yeah.
Obviously, Culmination we had to go to.
But man, Kevin Davies at Wayfinder, there is nobody on the West Coast, barring maybe Lisa Allen, who knows more, and you know, I know some information on that shit, but knows more about lagers than Kevin Davies does. So if we have any listeners close to that spot, Wayfinder fucking Brewing, there is nothing mediocre there.
Yeah, that was
fucking exceptional.
I was so thankful for that one because literally that was I had to fly home a day early on that trip, a day earlier than Thomas did because I had to get back to work, and that was the last brewery we went to. I almost just didn't go to it because I was like, I need to get to the fucking airport.
I would have been so bummed if you didn't.
We ran to Wayfinder. I like slammed a beer there. We talked to the guys and they gave us a super quick tour of their whole setup, and then I like hopped in an Uber back to the airport.
I got a free T-shirt.
How beautiful is that brewery? How beautiful is that brewery?
And the patio is just so beautifully laid out.
First of all, I love the fact that it's like everything is just up, like a half story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because like when you come up on the building, you're standing. It's not like the building is ground level. You know what I mean? And it's set back off the street. So like when you walk up to this place, there's like that big wooden, all that wooden paneling that the patio is on, and then there's kind of like that archway that you walk through to go up the steps or whatever. But that's like it's very like awe-striking of a building because when you walk up, it's just
very
like
aesthetically pleasing, and like the inside with all the alchemical symbols and
it's very like Gotham City. It's very Gotham.
So cool.
A lot of money behind it, and they found honestly one of the best brewers to lead that program in Kevin.
Yeah, they did.
And as this episode is about crossing over, but of course we're always as eccentric as we are going to get off topic and talk all kinds of things we love about beer.
No, we don't.
I would tell people, Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the books that we had given you when you came in and looked into our brewery was the Brewing Operations Manual. And if anyone's out there's listening, thinking about crossing over, Google that shit.
Book.
It's a book from the late 80s,
Add that to your list
90s.
of 2 books to read.
So 2 books to read. Just read 2 books, man.
That and pick another one.
Read that and
fucking
the
To Kill a
Oxford
Mockingbird.
Companion for Beer, and just fucking get to it. To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm sure Atticus Finch has a lot of information about.
Actually, if you want to get ahead and read
lines,
Of Mice and Men, it's a really great beer book.
I'm always a fan of the Odyssey when it comes to brewing. The Brewing Operations Manual was written in the late 80s, early 90s, and it really is the perfect guide.
It's a
helping people
great guide.
Understand how affordable. I mean, you can talk to
opening
any
a brewery on the cheap, dude.
Yeah, you can talk to any contractor, and they're going to try and sell you $250,000 of stainless steel, and you don't need that. I work in a brewery that proves that you don't need that.
What's it? What is it? This stuff? It's dairy.
We
It's
a,
dairy
a lot of
equipment.
our stuff is remainder dairy equipment,
Yeah,
but it
didn't you
still
call your
uses
mash
food
tun
grade
a milk
stainless
ton
steel.
the other day or something like
Yep,
that?
I did. I called it a milk ton, and that's what it used to be. It
Yeah.
used to be a milk ton. But it's stainless. It's food grade. It's all 1.5-inch piping, which is what is brewery standard. And we got it for,
Next
I
to
don't know,
nothing.
I'm gonna guess about $7,500 less than we would have gotten a pro mash tun at this point in time. Are there challenges with it? 150%. Some of my brew days are especially when I want to work with wheat and rye and interesting beers. Man, my brew days require some extra ingenuity. Totally. But can I do it? Yeah.
Fucking A.
Do I make good beer? I think so.
Fucking A.
I think so.
I think so.
You know,
I miss your beer.
so I miss you drinking my beer, my brother.
I was thinking about that. I've been trying to be good over the whole pandemic about not traveling a lot. And honestly, one of the last real trips I took, besides a quick trip out to the coast, where I didn't really go out at all. I just wanted to go see the ocean when I got back from Montana. But
Sure.
the last real trip I took was for Thomas's birthday when we went over to Portland.
That was the last real trip I took too.
But God, I just fucking miss going places, and like especially that one where it was just all about me and a couple of homies drinking at every fucking brewery we possibly could over a weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I cannot wait until I can feel comfortable traveling again. I'm gonna drive up to Portland for a weekend with a couple of friends and just get fucked up. I also can't wait to come back out to Montana and hang out out there because
I miss those days.
damn,
I
dude.
miss those days. Yeah, I'm not gonna try and bring you across state lines with the current situation, but March 9th we drop our first barrel aged sour.
Fuck.
It's been a
I'll tell you what, man. Put that vaccine in my arm, and I'm coming straight to Montana the day after. That's where I'm at.
It's been man, I can't tell you. I mean, I've drank a lot of sour beers, and I've worked on sour beers before, but I've never put the liquid in the barrel, let it age, fruited it, done everything primary right here, and then waited 15 months for it to be ready.
So I want you to talk dirty to me about this sour. Like, what's going on in it? What fruits are you using? Like, I want you to get down and dirty.
Raspberries, red currants, and aronia berries, which are, if people are listening, are something that's kind of unique to Montana or this area of the country. But aronia berries are choke cherries. So we've got 3 different fruits in it. About 120 pounds of fruit for this beer. Between the raspberries, the red currants, and the aronia berries, and it was aged in red and white wine barrels for 10 months. And then it's been on fruit for the remainder. And now it's been in keg for a month, conditioning warm, and we're pretty happy with where it's at. And it gets dropped on our anniversary. I'm pretty excited about it.
I want that shit up in my mouth.
Okay.
It's exciting.
You're gonna put it in your mouth. Your motherfucking mouth. I'm excited for the anniversary beers for Backslope to come out because I don't know if you said it or not, but not only are they releasing that beer on their anniversary, but there's like a beer a week or a beer a month being released after that or something.
Oh, that's tight. No, yeah. he didn't mention that yet, but
I'm sure he will mention something of it when he comes back.
That's kind of funny, actually. Backslope and J-Dub's anniversary are like right next to each other because J-Dub was, I think, March 10th was our anniversary. Our anniversary.
Nice.
Yeah, 5 years. 5 years we've been in business with that fucking place.
And to get kind of back on topic with the
bring it back in, Thomas.
I also and CJ has made this clear to me also is that I realized that like even if I had attempted to open even just a small little brewery type deal, something very tiny to scale and just start building up from there, the pandemic would have crushed me. And I would have closed before I even was able to open.
I mean, that was another thing I was actually thinking about earlier that I meant to bring up, and then we kind of, went in a different direction.
We do that, but yeah.
That idea of for you specifically being someone who's been trying to kind of enter into the professional world of brewing for a little while now. Like, it's not like you haven't been looking for a couple years, but, I remember near the beginning of the whole pandemic, you put in an application. I can't remember which one, but you applied at a brewery and you had the interview. They saw your tattoos on your fingers, and kind of it fell apart because they didn't know what their demand and what their life was going to be looking like for the next year. And
Well,
that's made it even harder. If anything, anyone who's comfortable at a spot is not about to fucking leave. And a lot of these places aren't looking to expand right now because they don't know, are they going to be kegging everything, canning everything? Is there going to be another shutdown? Is it going to keep going?
that was part of the email that I got back. I guess the owner of this brewery decided it's more financially responsible for his business for him to come back to work than for them to hire someone new.
Yeah.
And I totally understood that. But again,
Absolutely.
CJ, what we were talking about was just if I had attempted to open Orion's Belt during this pandemic, I would have closed my doors before they even opened, and even the opportunity that I had at the brewery here down in Big Fork fell apart because of the pandemic. So the owner decided to come back to work because it was more financially responsible, and I was this close to getting my foot in the fucking door. Even if it meant being warehouse bitching. Moving kegs and.
It's a struggle. It's a fucking struggle. And again, I mean, I've made no secret of the fact that years ago when I was homebrewing, we wanted to open our own brewery. The idea was total creative control. Had we opened our own brewery when we thought we were going to, no matter what help, financial or otherwise, we would have received, we would have been bankrupt right now. Because the fact remains that beer, just like food, service of any kind, it's an industry where you have to hit certain margins.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, unless you're unless you're the Paul Arneys of this world who can just do it and do it right. And I think a lot of that, like Josh, you brushed on, was the region he did it in and the affordability of rent down there. Like there's a lot
it's like the
of things
Goldilocks zone of life happening on a planet around a fucking star. It's just it couldn't happen in a place that's not like this.
Most of us don't have that. And if all of us move to the place that does have it, that place wouldn't have that anymore.
Exactly.
It really is a fairy tale of those who sneak through those cracks and are able to maintain a beautiful brewery that has low overhead and can do what they want. At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing at this point in time, I mean, there's over 6,000 breweries in the United States right now, craft brewers. So if you're stepping into the game or you want to step into the game, understand that you're stepping onto the Super Bowl. You're stepping onto the field of the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, it's the big game, son.
This is not fucking around. This is the big game.
It's the big game. I actually
come ready to play, and not just with your recipes, not just with your hopes and dreams. Come ready to play with the fact that you're gonna be looking at numbers.
Get ready to put hops in barrels.
Yeah.
And fucking do your shit.
Get ready to start putting liquid solution into every sort of vessel you can and coming up with all kinds of shit. Looking at numbers, running the numbers, understanding the numbers. I mean, there was a buddy of mine out here, older fella, who's owned several of his own consulting firms in the past, and all of this shit. When I asked him for a little bit of advice on what to do if I wanted to open my own brewery, I was like, well, like the beer's really good. He's like, stop right there. If you're coming to me for advice, I already assume that your product is good. I don't care. What I want is the numbers.
Right.
I want
what do you see this doing? And that was the same thing that every contractor or consultant ever told us. Me and my three friends, me and my two friends, excuse me, we were home brewing. The three of us, every time we'd go to a consultant, the first thing they said was, I don't want to hear about your beer ideas. How do you think this is going to make money?
Yeah, that's all the banks want to hear. That's all the investors want to hear.
How do you think this is going to be a viable business in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to make money off of it?
Right. And to be fair, how I thought we were going to be a viable business in 5 years, that wasn't realistic, and I can see that now because I have that foresight. Hindsight is 2020. You always see the mistakes.
Let's not say that anymore, because I mean, fucking 2020 was
a shit.
That was not a good vision.
Fuck 2020, and fuck Trump for that reason. But no, but you're right. Like,
oh yeah, we can say this stuff now.
What I meant was that. I mean, I would have said it then too.
Fuck Gina Carano too.
That it's easy to see the mistakes you would have made.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see the mistakes you're going to make. That's why they're mistakes.
You need that Jedi foresight.
Yeah,
It's how you learn.
it's a business, guys, and when you jump into it, you have to be ready to both be a creator and to be a capitalist, to fucking be a business person. And I'm so grateful that I'm a brewer where I work, and the only business side of things I'm responsible for is making sure my beer sells. That's all I have to worry about. And man, that stresses me out enough. So people looking to jump into this business realize that you could turn around tomorrow, you could buy a warehouse, you could plug some fermenters in, you could start doing shit. But eventually, what will come back to haunt you is brewing. There can only be so many people, the Paul Arneys of this world, who slip through the cracks. The rest of us, we have to play this game, and that game is IPA, that game is approachable beer, and that game is gimmicks that bring people into your tap house
in some
all
ways,
the time.
Even Paul Arney, although he gets to make these amazing, kind of one-off wild beers and everything that he obviously wanted to start with, like, I'm sure, I am 90,000% sure that he still plays that game too. Like, how does he sell those beers, right?
Kevin
Like,
Davies probably
obviously
does
he's
the
not
same
playing the
thing.
game by making the IPAs. He's trying to play the game his own way, but you still have to fucking sell the beers. You still
gotta
have
play
to
by the
advertise
rules.
it. You
Yeah,
still got to make
gotta
something that
play
people
by
want
the
to
rules.
drink.
It might not be the same subset, but you still got to play by the rules.
It was really interesting.
He got the get out of jail free card. He didn't have to make the fucking IPA, but he's still playing Monopoly.
Yep.
Right. It was really interesting. Again, I wish I could remember the article I'm referencing where Paul Arney was talking about that, and he said, 10 years ago in Portland, it almost completely made sense to open a brewery that was so boutique and so revered that I could sell my 750s for $38 a bottle, and people were like, "Yeah, it's a Paul Arney beer."
Yeah.
And now in today's world, we've really had to refocus and realize that that's not the business.
Yeah, not every
people
brewery is going to be able to get away with that.
It doesn't matter how good or how proud I am of my beers. People aren't buying $40 bottles of beer, even if they're 750 mil. So we've gone into small form packaging. We've looked at more approachable beer styles, if only to get our brand. I mean, we don't want to lose our focus, but we got to survive. At the end of the day, we got to survive.
Yep.
I mean, shit. I correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there listening, but I think that during COVID-19 times over this last year, 2020, this is the first time that Jester King out of Austin, Texas, has jumped into clean beer production, because they were like, well, nobody wants to buy 750s right now of boysenberry sour. They want IPA, and they want it cheap. So we got to make IPA, we got to make IPA.
And the other thing, for those that are looking to get into like this business from a homebrew level, like, and CJ, you've tried to drive this point home with me, over the last, couple of years. It's just, you can't take a half barrel recipe and make it a 7-barrel recipe just by increasing it by 14 times. It doesn't work that way.
Nope. Not at all.
You have to expect to. This is something that a lot of homebrewers don't realize the significance of, because dumping 5 gallons is a lot different than dumping 200 gallons. But sometimes you're going to have to admit that didn't work. I have been very lucky through my experience at my current brewery, where I have not had to dump a batch of beer, but I've been close because I've made mistakes. And you know what? On one hand, I could say I'm lucky. It's not my money. But on the other hand, I could say I'm still terrified, because it's not my money. My ability to do my job well.
There is a way for you to take the recipes that you've made at home and make them suitable to the size of the equipment, but you're probably going to have to play around with that.
And if you play around and you mess up, that's
the name of the game,
something to take into consideration.
But unfortunately, like CJ said, it's not dumping 5 or 10 gallons down the drain or out the driveway. It's dumping 200 or 300 or 500 gallons down the fucking drain, and there goes 15 grand in fucking sales.
Yep. And if we're on that topic and talking to people about how they scale up, I will give everybody a word of wisdom that my first brewery contractor gave me. And there is a sliding scale to this, but it's if you're going to open a 3-barrel system, you might as well look into a 5 because the cost of fabrication is the same. It's just simply the cost of materials at that point. And 5 barrels of beer gets you a hell of a lot more return on your investment than 3 barrels does. And that by that logic, if you're going to do a 5, you might as well do a 7. Now, if you're at a 7 and you're thinking, hey, I might want to sell kegs off site, which everyone who's listened to this podcast knows my feeling on beer distribution. It's a con job and you'll never make your profit back. But if you have to do it and you're going to build a 7-barrel system, might as well build a 10.
I mean, that's what,
Might as well build a 10.
Boneyard, that's how Boneyard started. They had a little tap room where they would serve tasters and growlers to go, but pretty much 100% of their sales were kegs offsite.
And they're a golem in this. They're an outlier in this scenario because the way, like back when they started.
Yeah, I was going to say, not everyone's going to be able to do that.
That was feasible.
No, not everyone's going to be Boneyard. That's for sure.
But we all know that, and Josh, you know this better than anybody, that when Boneyard went big, we saw a change in product too. We had to. They couldn't make the same recipe on a 5-barrel system that they were now going to make on a 100-barrel system. They couldn't do that. So did the beer lose quality? I'm not going to say that. But did the beer lose its consistency for a while? Absolutely.
I think there was like a transition period there. Yeah,
the transition period.
Right. To be fair, I was never a huge fan of the beer that made Boneyard what Boneyard is.
RPM.
Never been a huge fan, and I'm never going to shy away from that. Everyone who knows me knows that, and I've got a shitload of friends at Boneyard. I still drink a Boneyard's new brew pub at least once or twice a week.
It's a damn good beer, but
I give
that
beer
a lot of shout outs on my reports, but I think I've drank 1 RPM in the last year, and that's probably going to stay that way. I drink about 1 or 2 RPMs a year. That's about it.
It's definitely but gosh, who was I?
They have so many other beers that I love so much more.
Oh man, I was listening to I think it's Dan or David Walker, who is the founder of Firestone Walker. Obviously, Matt Brindleson is the head brewer of Firestone Walker.
I think it's Dan.
Dan Walker, thank you. And he was saying, and T, I remember recounting this to you a few days ago. He was saying. He was being asked, if you opened up today, in 2020 or 2021, wherever you want to put the current time cycle, and you were going to start with your flagship beer, DBA, would that work today? And Dan chuckled and he goes, no, no, not at all. No, that beer would never make a splash today. Now, back in its heyday, just like Sierra Nevada, just like Blind Pig or Pliny the Elder, DBA was a groundbreaking craft beer. And Dan was doing things in his process that no modern brewer would ever think to do. He was running a traditional Burton-on-Trent system. And that's incredible.
For those that don't know, refer to the books we told you to go buy earlier.
Yeah. He essentially, the idea is the Burton system is that you would pull a portion of the fresh beer and partially age it in oak to mature it properly and then reblend it back into the fresh beer to create that style. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of risk, and it's a very complicated way to brew a beer. And modern times, in modern times, I should say.
Not modern times, the brewery.
We don't fucking need, you're right. I was almost going to say that. We don't fucking need to do that. But he stood on that, and he stood on that in the early 90s. He said, this is the way we're going to brew beer.
Well, I mean, it's like the breweries that still do decoction mashes. There's really no reason to do one with the equipment and technology that we have today, but
other than to pay tribute,
Yeah, there are breweries right here in the valley that
doing it, and respect to them. Kalispell Brewing Company.
And respect to you guys for doing that. It's just a very arduous way to go about making beer.
It's so much fucking work, but it's interesting to think about somebody who has been so successful. I mean, we've praised their name before. I think personally, Firestone Walker is one of the best major craft breweries in the country, and I think they have. I think they have.
I can't argue with
that shit up. But here's a guy who's saying, yeah, if I brought my flagship out in 2020, it wouldn't make a fucking splash.
Yeah.
The only thing that we have going for us right now with that flagship is its time in the market. So anyone who's looking to cross over, think about that right there, is that you're going up against people who've been doing this for 30 plus years. What are you bringing to the table? What are you doing that's different? And also remember that everybody out there who's already thought of it has jammed peanut butter, fucking Skittles, fucking Smarties into their beer. Don't do that, because it's done. You have to come here with a knowledge and a base of skill, and you have to come here with a passion to want to make beer better. Otherwise, I don't care if you're Avenue 1, where you're going to go through in the grind, or your Avenue 2, where you've got the money behind you. You will fail. You will fail. Like, I can't say I'm not wishing that upon anybody,
But you
but
have
that's
to.
a warning
That's
to
just.
everybody.
It's going to happen.
Be prepared to come into this industry and mop the fucking floors and work your ass off.
And we don't mean like mop the floors with the competition. We mean literally mop the fucking floor.
Literally mopping the floors.
Failure is a part of success, and I'd say 99% of successful business owners, be it in brewing all the way up to hedge funds, have failed at some point in their life before they got to where they are now.
There's a quote I read yesterday. It was actually a picture of Yoda on Dagobah, and he was holding a Warwick bass guitar, and it was fantastic.
I don't know what half those words mean.
Yes, you do. Shut up, music nerd. So he's sitting on the rock from the Dagobah scene from Empire, and the quote on the picture says, "The difference. Do you want to know the difference between the master and the beginner? It's that the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried."
I like that quote. I really like that quote.
That's actually a really good one.
So it reminds me of the quote that we always would see in the dojo for doing like jujitsu, where it's like it takes 10,000 times to make a master, and that's not 10,000 times of wrestling. That's 10,000 times of trying one fucking procedure.
Yeah, I was thinking about that quote just yesterday.
Wait, actually, I was thinking about the strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
That would be Cobra Kai. I subscribe to more of the bonsai tree philosophy there.
The more of the Miyagi-Do?
The more of the Miyagi-Do, yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I was thinking about that 10,000 times to make a master thing, and I figure if I'm skiing 100 plus days a season, I'm skiing on average about 10 plus runs a day. I've been doing this since I was a year old, man. I've easily skied over 10,000 runs in my life. I must be a fucking master, right?
Right.
Not necessarily, but how many times
have you skied the same run? How many times have you hit the exact same line? That's the way I think about it.
Absolutely. I totally get that's the difference there.
I know that's what you mean.
Look at all the facetedness that's going on here.
For our listeners, it's like at this point in time, I've probably made 500 plus brews in my life, right? Professional and amateur, 500 plus brews. But I'm not even close to doing 10,000 brews of a single IPA, which is what I believe that philosophy would say makes me an expert or a master at that IPA. 10,000 brews does not make you a master. 10,000 brews on a Pilsner, that makes you a master of Pilsner.
Well, not just of Pilsner, of a specific Pilsner.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where it sounds like a broad statement, and it's not. It's not. You have to really, if you're going to commit to this, you have to commit to it, and you have to understand that.
And if you make homebrew and you haven't had to dump beer down the drain, you're doing something wrong. No one is that lucky or that good at what they do.
Or you just really love drinking mediocre beer, which
that is a good point too.
I have yet to dump a homebrew down a drain, but we did accidentally dump a homebrew onto my roommate's laptop once. So
that'll happen. That'll happen.
5 whole gallons of IPA onto the laptop.
I had a good streak where I had I want to say 8 successful brews, and then I put 5 down the drain at once.
Yeah. And I feel like we're hitting a point where we're kind of coming to a close on all the things we could say. But that being said, I want to get out to everybody, because this episode is about crossing over, and I truly feel as though I have crossed over. the challenge doesn't stop once you're a professional brewer. If you're doing things right, the challenge never stops. I can't tell you the number of times I've called T, I've called you and been like, hey, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to fucking work, you know?
Or not even that it's not going to work, but you're worried about whether or not it's going to work. You're
I'm
like,
worried about this is going to go down, you know, it does not,
the
it's not like you
conversation.
cross over and all of a sudden you're a pro and you have no worries left. You know, it is,
But if you're doing it right, you're still pushing the envelope and you're trying to do the best that you can do, and that
You're
doesn't mean doing the
constantly
same
pushing
thing
the
that you
envelope.
already
When I
have
came
done.
in to
Constantly
shadow
pushing the
with you, and we made that back blend, which I believe we talked about the actual term for back blending a beer.
Right.
It might actually be that Burton-on-Trent specific.
It was essentially what we made is what's known as a beer to coopage,
Right,
which is
beer to
a
coopage.
young beer blended with an old beer. Essentially, is the formal definition of it.
But like, even when we were making the new beer that day, like, you knew what was downstairs in barrels, or or that had been pulled from the barrels back in the bright tank. You were like, I have no idea. I've never done this before. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. And then you watched it, and
I was rolling the dice on everything. I believed in my heart that the beer downstairs needed something, and I believed what it needed was fresh beer. And we tried it, and you were there to brew that fresh beer, which was a wonderful experience, both on a friendship level and on a brewing level.
I mean, it was great for me.
Fuck me, I would never tell anybody that I fucking had a plan there. That was rolling the dice.
But up until the day that beer hit the tap and actually like poured into a glass, you were like, I don't, like, yeah, sure, you pulled some samples and you're like, okay, this is better, but how are people going to respond to this?
Like so many things I've tried in my short career as a professional brewer, I have always been a little anxious every time I have to put that glass in front of my bosses and say I really believe in this product, because to be fair, it's been a living product up until that point that I put it right in front of them.
100%.
And so it might have changed. It might have gone rogue. Who knows? You know, and I think I did all my math right. You know, I think I did all my artistic plays right. But it people need to understand that unless you're like, it's no longer okay to open a brewery and just say, I'm going to have a blonde ale, a pale ale, an IPA, a porter, and a stout. Sorry, you'll go out of business in 12 to 16 to 18 months. It's not going to happen. You have to push the envelope, but pushing the envelope means putting yourself out there and being sometimes truly afraid
and vulnerable,
like,
dude.
Oh shit, this might not pull around.
And vulnerable in the sense
I
of
might have
like
just wasted $1,000 of the brewery's money. You know,
and
or fuck $1,000 of your own money if you started the brewery.
If you're opening your own company, shit, you know, and I can also tell you guys, you know, to the listeners, Josh has brought up a very key thing. It is more detrimental to sell shitty beer than it is to dump product down the drain. It is. I will repeat that. Selling shitty beer will cost your brand more in the long run than dumping shit down the drain.
If I go to a brewery and I hate the beer that I had, I'm not going back.
Coming back. And more so, you're going to tell your friends, I'm not coming back.
Well,
word of mouth is huge.
When I was going to do the beer event that, thank God, the pandemic caused me to cancel that event. Okay. And I had gone forward like with the beers that I was planning to, with the alkalinity problem that I was having. All of my credibility and everything that I had done up to that point is out the fucking window if I had gone through with those beers. But luckily, you and Warren, who is now at
Miss you, Warren.
What's the name of the brewery he's at up in Canada now?
It's up in Banff. I can't quite remember the name of the brewery, but
I don't remember it off the no option or option list. I something along those lines. Came over and you guys figured out that it was an alkalinity issue. Yeah, if I had gone through with that event, you know, like any credibility toward my homebrew would have been out the fucking window, and everything that
every time you put your product out there, you do two things. You make a promise for quality, and you make a promise for reliability.
Right.
And the minute you break that, And Josh, you've been in the service industry for long enough time to know the minute you break your oath as a good service person, people will forever doubt the service you give them.
Yeah, you could do it
It's
right 1,000 times, but you do it wrong once, and that
one
casts
time,
so
and
much more
they
doubt.
always remember that time.
Well,
And
I
it's
can't help
no
but
different with
So
beer.
even if that event went through and like the beer was crap and everyone's just like, "What is this? We don't want it." Even if I had gone through that summer, figured out my issue, and done what I did and started making new beer again, people would have been like, "Nah, I don't know how I feel about this."
Well, I
You
can't
know?
help but think about, the Great Northern Brewing Company, RIP, out in
R.I.P.
Montana. I remember, like, because when I started coming out there on little trips and stuff here and there, I loved the Great Northern Brewing Company. And then, so when I moved to Montana, it was one of my favorite spots to go and hang out. And then, as things went on and I was talking to more and more locals, the people who had lived there for, 10 plus years or for a long time, so many people out there didn't like the Great Northern Brewing Company because they remembered a period in time where they didn't make great beers.
Right.
And then they just never went back and gave them another chance. They went to Bonsai, they went down to, places in Kalispell or out to Backslope instead, and they never gave Great Northern a second chance. And so
I
then
was one of those people.
yeah, and so then when I came in and I was new to it, and I was like, these guys make great beer. I remember the night, Thomas, that you came and met me there, and you're like, oh, this is actually like decent beer.
Yeah, I mean, I had had it
Because you hadn't
before.
had good beer from them.
Well, I had worked at the restaurant next door at the Craggy, and they had a couple of great Northern beers on tap, and there was a couple of great Northern beers on tap over at the Northern. I know that
Yeah.
sounds really convoluted, but yes, they are two very different
Yeah,
places.
the Great Northern Brewing Company and the Northern Bar are across the street from each other with the exact same logo.
It's a
and
small
just
town.
Completely unrelated to one another. But like, yeah, a couple of times I was just like, like the first time I had going to Sun, I was just like, oh, I do not like this. But also, when I first moved here almost 10 years ago, I was not nearly as versed in craft beer as I am now, and I'm not even that well versed. But I'm way more versed than I was when I first moved
Oh,
here, for
absolutely.
sure. Um, so I think over time, because my palate changed also, that I realized that, like, yeah, I drank a lot of Yingling and Coors Light back in Jersey because I didn't know any better. But now that I live here and I'm like just literally neck deep in craft brew and having gone to Portland with you and working with you, CJ, and making my own shit, going back to drink this stuff, years later with nothing but a memory of what it used to taste like, completely changed my whole
Yeah.
idea about that
And
that brewery, because I was like,
that's not
oh,
entirely.
okay. I mean, yeah, some of
Yeah.
their beers I'm still not a big fan of,
There
but
was definitely still a few that I wasn't a huge on, and it's not what shut them down in the end. In the end, that's a whole nother story. But it didn't necessarily help. And to me, coming from out of town, I loved the vibe there. They had a handful of beers that I certainly loved drinking.
and now you can go find some of their bartenders at Sacred Waters. What's up, Topher?
Yeah, right.
I miss that brewery. Like you,
But
Josh, I miss that brewery. It was a
it
great
was
brewery for what it
quintessential to
was.
that area, and it was kind of sad to see like so many people who had lived there for so long who just wrote it off because a couple bad beers 15 years ago, right?
Right.
I mean,
But
Or
that
10
honestly,
is
years
that,
ago.
but that is the struggle. That is the struggle
you
that we
know,
But
all
that is
we
what
all
happens.
face.
and not saying that it's anything, different at Backslope. It started the same way there. Like the
Yeah.
the beer wasn't as good as it is now. It wasn't bad by any means, but it's definitely not as good as it was now. What you heard about Backslope in the beginning was the food. And everybody kept going back for the food, the food, the food. The beer got better. CJ took over. Now they've got, I would say, probably some of the best beer in the valley.
I appreciate that. I will obviously, because I represent them, step in and say that even my owner and head brewer Darren would say that the beer has gotten better. The beer we've worked a lot on it, and
Yeah.
it's also been the same uphill climb of trying to explain to people what we're trying to do with our beer, the direction we're trying to go.
But it all falls
Um,
into all the things that we've talked about all night, like moving from a homebrew system to a 7 barrel size system is not an easy feat. You're not,
And trying to
no,
do the
it's not.
relevant things like making an IPA, but still trying to push the envelope and actually make new good beer instead of just making the same fucking IPA 100 times.
Right.
Right.
You know,
And you need, again, that's when we talk about people crossing over. That's the idea of relevancy, where you might make one good thing, but can you make it 100 times? And can you also make new good things as well? Because, we have people,
and not even so much can you make it 100 times, can you make it close to the same and consistent
consistency is a
those
big
100
thing.
times.
And we have a lot of people, look, we've had fans of Backslope since it's been open, have come in and said they don't like my beers, and I understand that too. We've had people who've
I don't understand that. I think they're wrong.
I appreciate that.
Well, fuck those people and their opinions. I hope you guys don't pay to listen to this podcast.
Because I do represent a brewery in the Flathead Valley, and I'm very proud of that brewery and proud of my
as you should be
proud of my team. And that team who's let me express, my creativity through these beers. But we are getting a lot of good feedback and positive feedback. And that being said, I think that everybody has a role to play. And I think that one of the best things that Backslope gave me was creative freedom. They took a step back and they said, if you want to make this, make it and stand by it. I mean, and I didn't. I guess overall I didn't fail. I definitely had some beers that I won't mention the beers' names, but we had some close calls. But I definitely was able to push boundaries and try things. But I was to the listeners who want to hear about crossing.
That's
over,
when you convince your boss to get you a fooder.
I was very lucky.
I mean, I think for any artist,
I still haven't gotten my fooder. No, I still have not gotten.
But yeah, like those marginally questionable beers. You're just like, man. See, this is why we need a fooder.
I've gotten a lot of barrels, but I have not gotten my fooder yet. But what I have gotten is a lot of trust.
Is it on back order with the cool ship?
Yeah, it's on back order. That's right.
Well, I think one of the most amazing things that any artist could ever receive, be you an artist in creating new beers, an artist in music, an artist in painting or filming or any of that, or a culinary artist or whatever, the fact that they were willing to take that shot on you, that's something that it's super rare and an extreme blessing.
Yes.
Like John took a shot on me and teaching me how to bartend at J-Dub when I was 21 years old, and I'm forever thankful for that.
I mean, so
Backslope took their shot on.
My buddy Ron took a shot on me when I moved to town for sound engineering, and this dude has done stuff for like Tom Petty, the Backstreet Boys, fucking. I'm pretty sure he was on tour with Stevie Nicks and. Because I don't care about this band, I always forget their name. Fleetwood Mac. Like he's done some
the Ocean Spray cranberry juice.
You
band.
care about the Eagles, you don't care about Fleetwood Mac. I mean, that's got to be another episode that we have to talk about. We won't address it right now.
No.
Don't understand.
You need to come onto the nerd podcast that I do, and we'll talk music about that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. At some point, we need to have a crossover.
He took a chance. We should have a crossover episode between Nerd Universe and Final Gravity.
Drink beer and talk nerdy.
Yeah.
Final Grav and Nerd Universe.
Final
Universe
Gravity Nerds. but he took a chance on me coming from New Jersey and just being like fresh out of audio school, and now like whenever he doesn't want to work, he's like, "Hey man, you want to work this weekend?" Absolutely, dude.
Yep.
He knows I know my shit.
If it's in any way in a closing to this conversation, I would reach out to anyone who's listening and reiterate what we just discussed. Take your fucking chance when it's in front of you.
I sent my fucking application to Kevin Davies at Wayfinder, knowing full well I was never going to get a call or an email back.
Those who
but
don't
I still
push
did it.
do not receive anything.
If you don't take the shot, you won't get it.
But understand
if you take the shot, the worst that happens is they say no.
Yeah, but this job is not as glamorous as we on this podcast or myself make it sound. It is work. It is putting in the hours, and it is just like cooking or bartending. You're going to spend a lot more time learning somebody else's techniques before you get the chance
to create
put your own
for yourself.
Foot down. And you will get that chance, but you do have to plug and play. You do have to learn what everybody else has done before you, because you're not building a new wheel. Just for every home brewer out there, you're not building a new wheel. And I say that with love to creativity. But I also say that
that's
because
with
I
a
want
lot
to
of-
stop a wave I'm seeing of people who think that they're just coming in with the newest, hippest idea. That's
Yeah.
not how it works. This has been going on for 2,000 years minimum, right? Craft brewing, anyway. I mean, obviously, again, Samaria has been brewing since fucking 5,000 BC. You know,
That's amazing.
you're not going to change the course of brewing history. You might find a place in it, and I want you to find a place in it if you're out there and you want to. Especially, by the way,
Well,
if you're female
you never
or
know,
a person
maybe-
of color, we need more of you in the brewing industry. It's the end of Black History Month. If you're a person of color and you want to brew, fucking get out there and do it. But no one is reinventing the fucking wheel.
Well, maybe
No
one in a
one.
million of you, like, right? Maybe there's that one person out of hundreds of thousands of people out there that will actually change the course of brewing history. But it's okay to not be that one person too, as
No one's
long as you leave
expecting
your
you to
mark.
be Nirvana, man.
Yeah, no one's I mean, you never
I
know.
would've
You
said
might
Alice
stumble
in
across
Chains,
the
but-
coolest, newest thing. But you know, if you're not the Beatles, that's okay.
Yeah, no
Right.
one's expecting you to be the Beatles, but you know
I
what?
would have said the Birds, but it's okay.
God
It's okay.
damn it.
Hey, the Beatles changed.
You mean Wings?
Whether or not you love their music, they changed music forever.
Wings can suck a dick, and you know it.
You don't have
Oh
to
my
be
God,
Fleetwood
we are
Mac, but
not
maybe
gonna
you
have
could be
that
Stevie Nicks.
conversation
I
on
hope
here.
that's never cut out of this podcast.
No.
Wings, it can suck a dick.
Okay.
Um,
Well, in light of
Oh.
that, I'm going to surmise this episode. If you
I
want
think this has
to
devolved into
try,
the end of the episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hope you guys have learned a lot.
I'm
From
gonna-
us
I'm gonna
about
wrap
both
this
our
shit up.
musical preferences,
All
our
right,
pop
let's
culture
listen to
preferences,
Thomas.
everybody
what's
shut up.
up?
I'm going to wrap this up. If you want to get
All
into
right.
the brewing world, we're saying fucking go for it, but be ready to fucking work. CJ, thank you. Josh, thank you. Like, the input tonight has been fucking amazing. You guys are awesome. If you want to help continue to help us keep the content flowing, please go support us at patreon.com/Final Gravity Podcast or Final Gravity Pod. I forget which it is. There's a link
T needs a
somewhere.
salary. Josh and I
I
are
need to
fine.
start
Josh
making
and I
money.
are
These guys are
crushing it.
fine. I need to
Josh
start
and I are
making
crushing
money.
it.
You
All
can
your money will go to Thomas's political action committee.
It's really just to help him buy beer so he can
Jesus
keep doing the
Christ.
podcast with us.
It's like herding cats with these two. I swear to God. Anyway, so find us on the social medias at final.gravity.podcast. All of my personals are at cousin_T. Josh, which site are you going to plug this week?
Let's go.
Which
I
one
don't
is he
know.
not going to plug this week, dude?
Let's just do it really fast. You can find me at TikTok at Josh_reports, as well as on Instagram and Facebook. You also have the Viking Peaches on YouTube and Instagram, and then you have Josh Saran Photography on Facebook. You have Josh Saran on Facebook, and then you also have Project.Enjoy Every Day on Instagram and Facebook.
He's got
Boom.
so many things to follow him on. CJ doesn't even need to have
He
social
forgot
media.
his Surgeon General's warning, but you can't find me. You can't fucking find me.
But in
Go
closing,
drink his
again,
beer.
if you want to brew, fucking do it. Don't put crap in your beers. Learn how to make beer the right way. Learn to work hard. Put your fucking head down. Read some books. Do the
Be willing to
work.
fail.
Learn to fail. Failure.
Be willing to fail.
And
is
one
the
more
best
time,
thing
I'm
we've
going to
said
quote
on this
Yoda,
podcast.
even though the first quote wasn't Yoda, but I'm going to finish this with a Yoda quote, and that is, failure, the greatest teacher is. And we're out of here. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Gravity.
We're going to be releasing a beer mini next week while we are off for our week, and then we will be back to catch you for the end block of season 2. Later, y'all.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.